anyway, so they did this Gallup poll. So how many of you think money makes you happy? Money makes you happy. How many of you think money does not make you happy? Oh, good church people. I'll take your money. How many of you think money causes problems? You're all right in a sense. You're all right in a sense. While every country is different, the study found that about, again, this is average, it said 75,000 is about what makes people happy. Again, it's higher in some countries, lower in some countries. That's what they came up with. They also know that going from 20 to 50,000 actually makes you twice as happy. Why? Because that is the difference. It gets you out of poverty. Twice as happy. But it says at 90,000 you reach a point where anything above that doesn't do much for your happiness anymore. And it says also that once the higher you get, not only are you less happy, but it actually starts to cause problems in your life. So I think we tend to think of money that we have, and the happier we will be, the more we get. And it's kind of this unending scale, like it's infinitely better, right? The more money you get, you're always going to be happier every time. But beyond basic human needs, studies say there is decreasing happiness in those returns. And while the rich are happier than the poor, the enormous rise in the standards of living in the last 57 years in our United States really hasn't made us any happier. Why? Well, 3 reasons. We overestimate how much pleasure we have by getting more, not just money, but just getting more in general. While we make more money in the short term, and that makes us happy, the happiness eventually wears off. It's a phenomenon called hedonic treadmill or hedonic adaptation. It just means once you get it, you get used to it, and it doesn't have the same effect anymore, and then you need more. Right? You need more to get that next high. Americans are not happier because more money can also lead to more stress. Truth is, the more money you make, probably the harder you're working for it. And it robs you of your time. It makes you anxious. So it comes with some burdens. And lastly, Americans are not happier in the rise in living standards because we endlessly compare ourselves to the family next door. A lot of times we are never satisfied because we're always looking and considering our envy, right, that causes us not to be satisfied. These are all things, studies that tell us certain things, but the important thing is what does God say about it. We're going to talk about that today because God knows what makes you happy. And again, I started out the first week saying I don't want to offend you, but the truth is I don't think we really understand what makes us happy because we are always in pursuit of happiness. We never stop pursuing happiness. For some reason, we're never sustained in our happiness. So yesterday, brought my car and my grandson to the car show, but I got that for happiness, mostly my own, and for Dad. He didn't really understand, although he's very happy in there. He's completely content in there. But it reminds me of when I was growing up. My dad got me this. I don't know if you guys ever saw this. It was a Stutz Bearcat 6-volt battery operated car. There weren't a lot of people didn't have those back then. But Dad got that for me. I think there was a TV show on it that had that car in it. I think that's why it was out there, but it made me happy. I really enjoyed it, but it didn't sustain me. I'm still thinking about my little car that Dad got me. That is not what makes me happy anymore. There are other things that have helped to sustain me, but over the last few weeks we've been talking about happiness and considering the question, of course, what makes you happy? It's based on a study by Andy Stanley. You can take a look at that anytime if you want, but if you've been here, hopefully you remember there were a couple answers that we had about the question, what makes you happy? And on week 1 we asked that question, and the answer was, it is no thing, right? What makes you happy? No thing. It's more about a who than a what. And then we also talked about another thing, which was sowing. Happiness is about an outcome. It's a work in process. It's a result. that we eventually get to that is not immediately available. In other words, you reap what you sow, right? You have to sow for it. Invest in the harvest of happiness that hopefully is going to come in the future. And realize that you can sow happiness and you can sow unhappiness and reap the results of those things. But today's sermon title is Happy Money. So I'm not here to tell you that there's no connection between money and happiness. There clearly is. The Oakland survey I talked about said, in a certain range of income, you can be twice as happy. There is correlation. No doubt there is happiness in money. But still, this is where we get it wrong. We think about this connection between money and happiness. So again, the question is, how much money would it take to make you happy? I offered a price or a wage that is based on a survey, but how much money would make you happy? And probably the answer is more, right? More. If more money means more happiness, that would be good, right? How much more money? If you find yourself dissatisfied, you wish you had more money, how much more would make you happy? For most of us, if I ask how much money, maybe you don't have an amount in mind, but we could probably all agree on the fact that it's more than we have now, right? What would make us happy is to have more than we have now. With the exception of being on your deathbed, it's always going to be a thought. We're always going to have this pursuit in our minds. But it doesn't have to be that way. You see, there is a correlation between money and happiness, but more is not the correlation that the Bible teaches us. And I'm sure you know there are happy poor people, and there are miserable rich people out there, right? The connection between money and happiness is not more, it's not the amount. But I'll argue today that in truth, it doesn't matter how much you have, it matters how you manage what God has bestowed upon you. We've used a bunch of synonyms for happiness in the last few weeks, and one of them has been peace. Well, no matter how much you earn or have, if you don't manage it well, I believe you're not going to have peace. And here's why. If you don't manage your money, the money's going to manage you probably. I have to be honest with over half of the families in this world, money is managing them. And if your money is managing you, it's controlling your life. It controls your decisions. And you don't have peace because your life is not really in your control. Not being under control causes anxiety, of course. It robs peace and happiness. So Jesus talked about that. And this is what he said. No one can serve two masters. Either you have the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. So, here's how bad money is for your life according to Jesus. Look at the comparison in the passage. Jesus compares God and money. I mean, basically, he's trying to show different ends of the spectrum. Right? He compares God and money. You would think Jesus would say something like, "You can't serve God and the devil," or he'd say, "You can't serve God and sin." But he says, "You can't serve God and money." Actually, if you look in the King James, it says mammon. I put that up there. Which, I mean, money is not the perfect translation for that. Mammon is basically anything that is of wealth. It's all your possessions. It's your money. Money is a limited translation. It expresses more properly all the things that you covet. Okay? All the things that you covet, things that you are devoted to. Those things that you love, probably more than God. You might argue, well, I don't love money that much. But he defines in this passage what love is. Love means being devoted to something. So what does it mean to be devoted to money? That might be, it's just saying, you have to focus on it. You spend a lot of waking hours concerned or in the process of making money. It's the thing you have a quest for. It's the thing that you use as a filter for your decision making. Maybe you don't bow down to money. You might not have a shrine to money at your house. But if you're on a constant quest for money, for acquisition stuff, you might have to admit, yes, I am in love with money because I'm devoted to making sure I have it. Jesus says this devotion draws you away from happiness. In Mark it says, the deceitfulness of wealth and the desires for other things come in and choke the word, making it unfruitful. So there's nothing fruitful that comes from man. Okay? And if it's true that your desire lies here, you are not your own master. That's what you spend a bunch of your time in, is worrying about how I'm going to get the next thing, how I'm going to make more money, because I think it's going to make me happy. You have a new master. Something else has become your master. When my son Logan was little, he always had money. I mean, people gave him money. He saved from his birthday stuff. Little kid, 5, 6, 7 years old, 8 years old. So when we'd go to the store, he'd always take his money. He wanted to buy something. I mean, we kind of vetted what he wanted, but he'd go in there and he'd try to find something he wanted. He just thought, hey, we're going to the store, I have money, I should go buy something. So it was an agonizing thing for him to try to find something. Because he would get things, and this is pretty, we did this like every trip. Money in one hand, object in the other, and he's just, it's killing him, He's like, man, I really want that, but then I won't have my money anymore. So he'd be asking Mom, should I get this? Is this worth it? He's always complaining, is this really worth my money? And he rarely bought anything. Every time we went to the checkout counter, the last thing that we did before we checked out was Logan was running through the store putting something back because he couldn't part with his money. He understood buyer's remorse. All right, he wasn't going to put himself in that position. It wasn't going to be worth it to him. I don't know. Have you guys had buyer's remorse? Every time I buy something big, I have buyer's remorse. My wife and I, when we first after we'd been married a few years, we bought our house, and of course, we're saddled with debt and expenses of having a house at that point. But our water system broke down. We had to put a water conditioner in. We called a guy, came down there. I don't know how much it was, $5,000 or $6,000. He did a good job, but we had buyer's remorse because what we figured out after that, we could have done that for maybe a quarter of that cost. And it was a lesson. It's something. We talked about it for a long time. We were making financial decisions. We also think about that water conditioner we got. It was a matter of discontentment for us. We needed it, but it was a matter of discontentment for us. We want to think buying more things is going to make us happy, but the pursuit actually reflects on our discontentment many times. How many of you ever thought or ever bought something that you regretted? How many of you ever bought something that created discontentment? How many of you have been mastered by your desire for mammon and thought, I shouldn't have bought that? It could have been a hamburger. It could have been something small. It could have been something big. I got a house that I shouldn't have got it. It's too big, and I don't like the payment now. I got a new car and a new payment, and I could have fixed up my old car. There's a million things we can think about. You stand in front of our closets. My closet is full of shirts. I probably wear 10 of those shirts out of 50. But how many of us stand in front of a closet full of clothes and say we don't have anything to wear? Right? And then we give away the stuff we don't like, and we fill it up with a bunch of other stuff that we don't really like, right? And we're back in the same situation. Same thing, you look around your house. Why do we do that? What's our pursuit? Why are we motivated? It's just greed. Greed is a part of our discontentment. It's a cause of discontentment. And the Bible has nothing good to say about greed. For all of us here, a portion of your life's discontentment comes because you are greedy. And Jesus says we're greedy Christians. And I would say we're probably greedy Americans too. Welcome to church. That's the truth, right? That's the way it is. Greed is the obsession with accumulating material goods and money. Biblically, it's about thinking everything's for you, for yourself. It's an appetite. Greed is an appetite. It's an appetite to satisfy. The thing about appetites is it's never satisfied. You always need more, right? You don't stop having an appetite. We have to have things even when we can't afford them. Leads to another concern, debt. This is a hard statement to consider, but I think this is the gospel truth. I want is always better than I owe. One is always better than I owe. This statement has the power to break the cycle of greed that leads to discontentment. Last week we talked about the tension between us and the Father and the importance of that. Today we We can talk about some other tensions that rob us of our happiness. When you want something, don't have it, there's tension, right? It's hard. When you owe on something, you don't want to make the payments for it, there's tension. But we're stuck. Many of us, experience has taught us which is the better tension, and it's better to live with I want, don't have, than I owe, can't pay. It's hard to discipline yourself, but you soon realize, most time we get stuff we think, I don't really need that. It seemed like a good idea at the time. God says basically we're supposed to stay out of debt. And notice before you get something, it's between you and God. And God's gonna, you're gonna wrestle with God. Do I really need this? Do you want me to have this? Is he telling us you don't need that? Before you make decisions between you and God, but realize this, after you make that decision, after you've spent that money, after you put yourself in debt, it's not about you and God, it's about you and the creditor after that. And you know whose side God's on? He's on the side of the creditor. He says you have an obligation. You made that decision. Give to everyone what they owe them. Pay your taxes and government fees to those who collect them. Give respect and honor to those that are in authority. The wicked borrows but does not pay back. This is a series on happiness. I urge you, don't trade your peace and happiness for something that is not the equivalent substitute. Think about where your happiness really comes from. Debt is not a place of happiness. I don't think it is. I don't think anybody's happy about debt. But in Romans it says, owe no one anything. Proverbs says the borrower is a slave to the lender. If you want to be a slave to someone, be a slave to Jesus Christ. That's who you want to be a slave to. A credit score of 850 makes you a slave. Some people say, oh man, my score is 825. That's a badge of honor. If you really want to say something impressive, say it's a 0. Say, I'm not a slave to creditors. I never had to borrow money. I always pay cash for everything. I don't owe anybody anything. I live within my means. Really, that's what our goal should be. Everybody should want a credit score of 0. But anyway, think about it. Discontentment, greed, debt. Which of these makes you happy? Greed? I would argue that. Let me ask it this way. What amount of money is going to make you eliminate your discontent? Greed is what you want. If you want more and more, how much more? Will you be satisfied? Greed says you're never going to be satisfied. There's no amount of money or stuff that's going to help you with greed. How much would you like to get rid of? When it comes to greed, we don't want to get rid of anything. We just want to get more because you'll never have enough. What about debt? We get that credit card bill, we're not like, oh, thank you, sweet Jesus, thank you for that credit card bill. Thank you for the peace that brings. No, that's not what we're thinking. We don't want to pay it. This is not a plan for happiness. These things are not a plan for happiness. There's no way to live an abundant life like this, but unfortunately, I would say for most Americans, that's the way we live. The first practical advice that God gives us is he just says stop. Don't do that anymore. Stop doing what you're doing. Instead, listen to me. See, you need a money management plan for your happiness, and the Bible is filled with practical advice. And honestly, it doesn't matter if you're a Christian or not. If you follow the advice, the teaching of the Bible, it would make you happy. You'd be happy because of it. The fullness of this plan is to let the Father, for us, let the Father be your master. Tell money that you're not my master. You want to let it cause you anxiety. I'm not going to let you rule over me, money. I will not be led by you. Follow the Father. Andy Stanley says if you look at the scripture about wealth, basically it comes down to 2 words, generosity and wisdom, and I thought about it and I would agree. God's plan for your finances is about generosity and wisdom. This is how you connect money and happiness. It is generosity and wisdom. It is not about more. It's giving to those in need, and a plan allows you to do so, and to do so for yourself too. Pastor, I don't make a bunch of money. It doesn't matter how much money you make. Outside of abject poverty, it's not about how much you have, it's about how you manage what God has given to you. And I know this is challenging, and I challenge you in this area, but I always try to give tools, and so, again, I'll give you this quick way to think about it. John Wesley, who's the founder of the United Methodist movement, said this about money. He said, make all you can, save all you can, give all you can. I don't know about the order of that, but basically, get all you can without hurting your soul, your body, your neighbor. Save all you can, cutting off every needless expense. Be glad to give and ready to distribute, laying up in store for yourselves a good foundation against the time to come that you may attain eternal life. So, I'll say it this way. This is the way Andy Stanley says in his study. He says, give, save, live. Give, save, live. I think that's the biblical order. This is a simple biblical financial plan that if you follow, I think it's going to give you freedom. I think it's going to give you happiness. The first one is the one we might cringe at. When I talked to him about this morning, is to give. It's first on the list. It's the hardest thing for us to do. Give and it will be given to you. For the measure you use, it will be measured to you. It's God's math. But we're in the mindset that happiness equals money. We don't want to give our happiness away, right? We don't want to give our happiness away. But God commands you to give, or I would rather say it this way. God commands you to sow so that you can have that return. It might just be mental blessing. It might be the way you help somebody. It might be a return of other wealth. There's certainly no greater joy than being able to give and change somebody's life. I can't imagine there's anybody here that doesn't think that's a big thing that I could, gave that a guy in the street $5 for to get something, whatever it is. But to have the means to do it so in a comfortable way, to know that you were able to do it, you're not a slave to money, it was okay, you felt good about it, to say you're not my master money, and just say, no, I'll prove it by first giving. Not scared. I would give first. Think about how you have money taken out of your savings. Like you get your paycheck and some goes in your 401k, some gets taken out for a bill. We don't worry about that. We're okay getting that done first. We take that out before we worry about what's left over. When it comes to church, I try not to tell you how much to give. I want you to give out of the goodness of your heart, out of the moving of the Holy Spirit. But what I will say is give first. Give consistently. I think that's what God commands us to do. And I think we put some tools in to help do. We have the gift plus system we put in. But Jesus says if you give, you're going to have joy. Each one must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves to be cheerful givers. So you don't give just because you're asked to give, because it's right. You give because there is a joy and abundance in your heart that you're going to get from that. Giving gives joy. Greed, discontentment, debt doesn't get to you. And take care of yourself. Save. Money in the bank leads to peace of mind. It says so in the Bible. I don't think we're to be hoarders, but money in the bank gives peace of mind. It says, go to the ant and slugger, consider its ways and be wise. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler, yet it stores its provisions. You should do. Nobody can argue it's not a good thing to have savings. There is comfort and peace in knowing that you're prepared for the future. That's the gift of the gospel message, that we know we are secure in the future, and we make decisions here on earth to make sure we do that. But lastly, then you can live, and specifically you live on what's left. You go out there and make that money, get raises, work hard, reap the benefit of it, but live on what's left after you do the first things that God has told you to do, and be satisfied. You aren't going to achieve freedom because you have more. You will achieve financial freedom because you spend less than what you earn. That's an easy concept, hard to live by. But there's freedom in that. You can have debt, payments, and credit card bills, and obligations to creditors, or you can have freedom from all of those things and have peace. What makes you happy? Money alone is not your salvation, but money contributes to your happiness if you manage it well. So your happiness will come when you invite the Father into your life, allow Him to be your master, to listen to Him. Your happiness will come out of your generosity, it will come out of buying your wisdom that comes out of your money. If you know this freedom, that's great. If you don't know it, it's not the end of the world, because the plan is still there. It's still available for you. You can still change your ways. If you're struggling, God can work in that. But I'm hoping in the future we'll do some courses on financial stuff. But I don't think we should be preaching about being rich and wealthy. That's God's desire for everybody. It is for some. But more important to Him is not how much He gives to you, it's what you do with it, because it's a matter of worship. It's a matter of discipleship. So I ask that you think about that. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we do want to be happy. And I pray for all these people that are here today. I think about the second service and those that are demographically younger with families and great expenses. But I ask that we would never abandon your ways, Father. That we would figure out how to be content. We would work hard. We wouldn't be fearful or anxious. We would follow your plan and be able to invest, to sow, so that we reap the benefit of making those sound biblical decisions. I just ask you to help us to do that. That we repent from our typical lifestyle and instead, Father, have you as our master. We pray in the name of your Son. We're going to go ahead and close with God who's given